What if I told you that deep beneath one of the most heavily traveled seas in the world, there is a massive disc-shaped object sitting on the ocean floor that nobody can fully explain? It is 60 meters wide. That is almost 200 feet across. It appears to be sitting at the end of a 300-meter runway, as if something enormous came crashing out of the sky, slammed into the seabed, and skidded to a stop. When divers finally went down to investigate, every single piece of electronic equipment on their ship shut down. Cameras died, satellite phones went silent, and the moment they moved just 200 meters away from the object, everything powered back on. They moved back over it. Everything died again. Whatever this thing is, it does not want to be found. This is the story of the Baltic Sea Anomaly, one of the strangest, most chilling and most debated underwater discoveries of the 21st century. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will not look at our oceans the same way again. Let us go back to the beginning. It was the summer of 2011. A Swedish treasure hunting team called Ocean X, led by Peter Lindberg and Dennis Asberg, was searching the floor of the northern Baltic Sea at the center of the Gulf of Bothnia. 1. This is the body of water that sits between Sweden and Finland, one of the northernmost stretches of the Baltic Sea. Cold, deep, dark, and full of history. The Baltic Sea is no stranger to historical marvels. From sunken Viking ships to World War II relics, its waters are a treasure trove of history. 2. The Ocean X team was not looking for aliens or ancient ruins. They were looking for shipwrecks. Specifically, they were looking for valuable cargo from old merchant vessels and warships. They had done this kind of thing before. The two had parlayed their clout from a previous exploration in which they recovered a cache of vintage champagne from a 1907 shipwreck that sold for record prices at a Christie's auction. 3. These guys were serious professionals. This was their livelihood. Peter Lindberg later said, quote, "We'd been out for 9 days and we were quite tired and we were on our way home, but we made a final run with a sonar fish and suddenly this thing turned up. For ore." Think about that for a moment. They were about to pack it in and call it a day. They were exhausted, and on the very last sonar pass before heading home, the screen lit up with something nobody expected. They used a side-scan sonar and found something strange, 91 meters below the surface of the water. 5. That is about 300 feet down, and what they saw on the screen made them stop in their tracks. In 2011, a grainy sonar image showed what looked like the Millennium Falcon at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. 6. A massive broken circular structure. A round object with a diameter of approximately 60 meters and straight edges was discovered. 760 meters. That is almost 200 feet across. Some reports even describe it as roughly twice the size of a football field. But it was not just the shape that shocked them. The team that discovered it in 2011 thought it looked as if it were sitting at the end of a 300-meter flattened runway of seabed, perhaps caused by a crash landing. 8. A runway, 300 meters long, a flattened, scraped-out path across the ocean floor with this enormous disc-shaped object resting at the very end, as if something massive had come screaming down from above, hit the water, and gouged its way across the seabed before finally coming to rest. Now put yourself in their position. You are treasure hunters. You were looking for old wooden ships. And then your sonar shows you something that looks like a spacecraft from a science fiction movie sitting at the end of what looks like a crash site. What would you do? Peter Lindberg knew this was not something you announced to the world right away. Lindberg swore his team to secrecy, believing that the anomaly might draw the interest of nearby nation-states. They took the necessary precautions and turned off cell phones, GPS, radios, and anything else that could be tracked. 6. He was worried. He thought governments would come for them. He thought military agencies would want to seize the site, so they went dark. But it did not matter. The team was startled when an ominous-looking black ship arrived. It was a Swedish military vessel, but it made no effort to communicate. According to Lindberg, the Swedish military had no business there because the expedition was in international waters. 6. Think about that. They turned off every trackable device on their ship. They told no one. And yet a military vessel showed up and just sat there, watching. No contact, no explanation, just watching. The team spent the next several months preparing to return to the site. Curiosity piqued. The team spent the next several months planning a second expedition with extra equipment and divers. At first, they struggled to find the anomaly again. They launched several machines into the water. including remotely operated vehicles and cameras, to try and zero in on the anomaly's location. 6. And this is where the story takes a turn from strange into genuinely unsettling. Professional diver Stefan Hogeborn, part of the Ocean X team, said some of the team's cameras and the team's satellite phone would refuse to work when directly above the object and would only work once they had sailed away. He is quoted as saying, "Anything electric out there, and the satellite phone as well, stopped working when we were above the object, and then we got away about 200 meters and it turned on again, and when we got back over the object it did not work." 9. Let that sink in. This was not a one-time glitch. They tested it over and over. They would sail directly above the anomaly and their electronics would die. They would sail 200 meters away and everything powered back on. They would return over the anomaly and it would all shut down again. The most technically disturbing were the physical phenomena that occurred near the object, indicating a strong electromagnetic field or energy source. GPS signal, radars showed phantom objects, and remotely operated vehicles as well as divers' cameras and lights stopped working. These disturbances were correlated with the proximity of the object, indicating a local, strong electromagnetic source. 10. What kind of natural rock formation on the bottom of the ocean generates an electromagnetic field strong enough to kill satellite phones, cameras, and sonar equipment? The answer, according to any known geology, is none. Rocks do not do that. Glacial deposits do not do that, but something down there was doing it, repeatedly, consistently, and the team had no explanation. Despite the equipment failures, divers still went down. First, they thought it was just stone or a rock cliff, but after further observations, the object appeared more as a huge mushroom, rising 3 to 4 meters from the seabed, with rounded sides and rugged edges. The object had an egg-shaped hole leading into it from the top, as an opening. 11. The Ocean X team discovered right angles, walls with absolutely smooth surfaces and cavities like corridors inside the object. 12. Think about that for a moment. Corridors. Inside a supposed rock formation at the bottom of the ocean. The Ocean X team was able to penetrate parts of the anomaly with sonar. Rectangle-shaped corridors can be seen on the sonar scans. 7. The divers described a surface that looked burnt and blackened. The diving team dusted sediment from the object and found that the surface was black. One diver said it looked burnt. 6. The material of the anomaly is described as blackish powder, looks burnt, melted stone, cracks in the structure, and looks like lava coming out of the cracks. 7. The explorers pointed to what appeared to be a staircase and a rounded hole encircled by a square frame as what they believed were distinctively artificial features. 3. Berg said in a radio interview, "It has these very strange stair formations, and if it is constructed, it must be constructed tens of thousands of years ago before the Ice Age." 4. And then there was the temperature anomaly. He also reported water temperatures near 0 degrees Celsius at the site, which should be impossible at 90 meters depth, where normal Baltic Sea temperatures measure between 4 and 5 degrees. 13. Stefan Hogeborn said, "We looked at our dive computer, the deep sea diver computer, and it said -1 degree. That is pretty cold for a diver. It should really be impossible to have that cold water. 12 water that cold at that depth should not exist. It should be physically impossible. And yet that is exactly what their instruments recorded. But wait, there is more. Perhaps most unusual is a 20-centimeter hole with a frame around it, where divers observed sediment moving in and out in a rhythmic pattern, as if the object were breathing." 13. Breathing. A stone formation at the bottom of the ocean appearing to inhale and exhale sediment through a framed opening. I want you to sit with that image for a second. 2 holes at the top of the anomaly were discovered. One is about 25 to 30 centimeters and the other about 2 meters in diameter. The larger opening has a square-shaped build around it. 7 square frames. Corridors. Staircase formations. Smooth walls. Right angles. A breathing hole. And an electromagnetic field that kills electronics. Does any of this sound like a pile of glacial rocks to you? The team collected samples and sent them to multiple labs. Samples of stone recovered at the site by Ocean X were given to Volker Brucher, an associate professor of geology at Stockholm University. Brucher's analysis of the samples indicated that most are granites, gneisses, and sandstones. Among the samples was a loose piece of basaltic volcanic rock, which is out of place on the sea floor but not unusual. 1. Now hold on. Basalt is volcanic rock. It is formed from cooled lava. According to Finnish planetary geomorphologist Jarmo Korteniemi, volcanic-based explanations such as a hydrothermal vent are not plausible on the Fennoscandian Shield, as it is a thick crater with no active volcanism after the Proterozoic. 1. There has been no volcanic activity in that part of the Baltic for over 1 billion years. 1 billion! And yet, volcanic rock was found on this object. The scientists said maybe glaciers carried the basalt there during the Ice Age. Fine. That is possible. But things got more complicated when additional samples were sent to Israel. A sample taken from the surface of the object was tested for basalt mixed with organic material at the Weizmann Institute of Science and the Institute of Archaeology at Tel Aviv University. 7 laboratory tests in Israel confirmed organic burned material near the object, despite the Baltic Sea being essentially dead at that location with no biological activity. 13. Burned organic material. At the bottom of a dead zone in the Baltic Sea, where nothing lives, where nothing burns, where nothing burns. And yet there it was. New test results from Israel showed that a part of the circle is metallic. Swedish researchers say the opposite. 14 results from Israel show that the sample is metallic and contains limonite and goethite. Professor Dr. Steve Weiner of Israel says to the divers that there is a metal that nature cannot produce itself. 14. But Swedish geologists disagreed. Swedish geologists Fredrik Klingberg and Martin Jakobsson say that the chemical composition of the samples provided resembles that of nodules that are not uncommon in seabeds, and that the materials found, including limonite and goethite, can indeed be formed by nature itself. 1. So you have Israeli scientists saying nature cannot produce this, and Swedish geologists saying nature absolutely can produce this. 2 groups of experts. 2 completely opposite conclusions. And no resolution. And here is the crucial detail that most people miss. The geologists did not have actual samples from the object itself, but only from the seafloor and surrounding material. 1. No core samples from the main structure have been analyzed, so its true composition remains unknown. 15. Nobody has ever drilled into the actual anomaly. Nobody has taken a core sample from the main body of the object. Every analysis has been done on loose rocks found around it or on small fragments taken from its surface. We have never actually tested what this thing is made of deep inside. Now let us talk about what the skeptics say, because the skeptical argument does deserve serious consideration. The so-called Baltic Sea mystery object is, in all likelihood, a mundane glacial deposit, according to the scientists who studied samples from the object. 16. Korteniemi said the runway is most likely a natural rock formation, a drumlin formed by glacial action. 1. A drumlin is a mound of sediment and rock shaped by glacial ice as it moves across the landscape. They can be massive, and they can look unusual. The argument is that during the last ice age, enormous sheets of ice scraped across the Baltic seabed, carving out formations and depositing rocks in patterns that might look artificial to untrained eyes, but are completely natural. Aside from a widely reproduced illustration recently created by a graphics artist, in which the Baltic seafloor object is rendered as a beautiful Atlantis-like archaeological site, there has only ever been one actual image of the Baltic Sea object, the original sonar scan image captured by the divers. 16. All those dramatic images you have seen online of an underwater spaceship are artist renderings and computer-generated interpretations. The real data is one blurry sonar image, and the sonar itself has been questioned. The single sonar image provided by Ocean X has drawn criticism from a number of sources. Hanumant Singh of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution has said that it cannot be trusted because several distortions render it virtually useless for identifying an undersea formation. 1. Jonathan Hill of the Mars Space Flight Facility questioned the motives involved in Ocean X announcements, which included plans to take wealthy tourists in a submarine to visit the site. It was quoted in 2012 saying, "Whenever people make extraordinary claims, it is always a good idea to consider for a moment whether they are personally benefiting from the claim or if it is a truly objective observation." 1. So the skeptics say it is a glacial deposit, the sonar is unreliable, the team has financial motives, and the rock samples are ordinary. Case closed. Right, not so fast. Because the skeptical explanations, as reasonable as they are, do not account for everything. They do not explain the electromagnetic interference that consistently shut down equipment directly above the object. They do not explain the near-zero temperature readings at a depth where water should be 4 to 5 degrees Celsius. They do not explain the burned organic material found in a biologically dead zone. They do not explain the rhythmic sediment movement through the framed holes, almost as if the object were breathing. They do not explain the corridors and right angles documented by multiple divers. And they do not explain why the Swedish military silently appeared to observe a civilian treasure-hunting operation in international waters. The radioactivity of the ship's anchor, which was anchored about 2 to 3 kilometers away from the anomaly, was 6 times as high as normal. 6 times normal radiation levels. That is another data point that does not fit a pile of glacial rocks. And then there is the second anomaly. Expedition leader Peter Lindbergh confirmed that they found a second object. He said, "I confirm that we have found 2 anomalies. We did find the other anomaly approximately 219 yards from the circular find at the same sonar run." 17. Some 200 meters away lies the second strange anomaly. The initial side-scan sonar images show something described by the team as shaped like a Gothic church window. Similar to the main anomaly, this object also has an area leading up to it of disturbed sea floor or what could be a ridge. 12. 2 objects, 2 runways, 2 crash paths, side by side on the ocean floor. That is a remarkable coincidence if we are supposed to believe both are random glacial deposits. A sonar scan from 2014 showed a monolith or obelisk-shaped object laying on top of the second anomaly. The size of the rectangular-shaped object is about 7 by 27 meters. 18. So let us talk about the theories, because there are many. The first and most sensational theory is that it is a crashed UFO. The Baltic Sea Anomaly has been a hotbed for alien and UFO enthusiasts. Its disc-like shape and seemingly unnatural features have sparked comparisons to the fabled Roswell incident or an underwater Atlantis. 2. The disc shape, the crash runway, the electromagnetic interference, and the anomalous materials all fit patterns that have been reported in other alleged UFO encounters around the world. Historical records of unidentified aerial and submerged objects include descriptions that align with some of the characteristics seen in the anomaly. Several documented cases mention disc-shaped craft entering water at speed. Some reports describe submerged movement along the seabed. Others describe interference with electronic devices. 15. The second theory involves ancient civilizations. Peter Lindbergh of the Ocean X team also claimed that the anomaly could be the remains of the lost city of Atlantis, a mythical city first mentioned by Plato. 19. The Baltic Sea Anomaly could be a structure built 12,000 years ago when the Baltic Sea was dry. During the last ice age, the water level was at times about 120 meters lower than today. The anomaly is located at approximately 80 to 90 meters depth. 7. That means 12,000 years ago, the location where the anomaly now sits could have been dry land. If an ancient civilization built something there, it would now be submerged under the Baltic Sea. Dennis Asberg said, "Before the Ice Age, there was a lake where the Baltic is now, and the subject is on the coastal strip." 14. In 2024, archaeologists discovered Europe's oldest man-made megastructure in the Bay of Mecklenburg, in the Baltic Sea. 6. So the idea of ancient structures being found underwater in the Baltic is not science fiction. It has actually happened. Underwater archaeologist Andreas Olsson believes the object is man-made. For Olsson, the object appeared cut or molded. 6. Others studying the inconsistencies and strange features of the anomaly have compared it to the Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan. Located just 25 meters below the coast of Yonaguni-jima Island, these ancient ruins present another point of contention among archaeologists, who argue over its provenance. 3. The third theory is military. At that time, the Baltic Sea created a natural boundary between the Allied Soviet Union, neutral Scandinavia, and the Axis powers of the Third Reich. It was an epicenter of naval activity. In the struggle for control, countless mines were planted and naval warfare waged. During this time, it is believed the Germans constructed underwater structures to scramble communications signals and possibly disrupt enemy mines. 3. The Germans also allegedly ran a clandestine program which attempted to create flying saucers, leading some to suggest the possibility that this could be a crash site of one of the elusive Nazi Foo fighters. 3. But the Ocean X team pushed back on the military theory. The most obvious problem is the size of the object. It is over 60 meters across. The concrete net bases the Germans used were only 3 or 4 meters across. 20 Stefan Hogerborn, Swedish diver and ocean artifact expert, said it is definitely not a concrete submarine net base, and there are no realistic comparisons. 20. Now here is where the story gets its most dramatic update. After 15 years of ridicule, death threats, and academic rejection, Swedish treasure hunter Dennis Asberg finally obtained scientific validation he sought. In June 2025, Stockholm University deployed a research vessel to investigate the Baltic Sea Anomaly. 13. You heard that right. In 2025, an actual university research team went out there with proper scientific equipment. The breakthrough came through sub-bottom profiling technology, which uses acoustic waves to penetrate sediment layers and map subsurface structures. This system revealed that the object sits on top of the seabed, completely separated from the geological layers beneath it. The Stockholm University team used multi-beam sonar alongside this technology to confirm the object appears to have been placed there rather than formed naturally. 13. Placed there, not formed. Placed. That is the conclusion from a university research team using modern scientific instruments. Using profiling of the lower layers, the data obtained show that the anomaly is separated from the seabed. This technically rules out the possibility that it is a simple geological formation, such as a rock or a mountain. 10. If this data holds up to peer review, it changes everything. A glacial deposit would be part of the seabed. It would be connected to the geological layers beneath it. It would be embedded in the sediment. But this object is sitting on top of the seabed, detached from everything below it, like something that was dropped there, or placed there, or crashed there. The object has flat walls, corridors, and 90-degree angles covering 3,000 square meters of ocean floor. 13. 3,000 square meters of flat walls and right angles. That is not a description of a random pile of glacial rocks. That is a description of a structure. So where does this leave us? We have an object 60 meters wide, sitting 90 meters below the surface of the Baltic Sea. It has a disc-like shape. It sits at the end of a 300-meter runway. It has staircase formations, corridors, right angles, smooth walls, and framed openings. Its surface appears burnt and blackened. Divers reported temperatures near 0 degrees at a depth where that should be impossible. Electronic equipment consistently fails within 200 meters of the object, but works fine everywhere else. Rock samples contain volcanic basalt in a region with no volcanic activity for over 1 billion years. Lab tests found burned organic material in a biologically dead zone. Israeli scientists said the metals found could not be produced by nature. Swedish scientists disagreed. A second anomaly sits 200 meters away with its own runway. The ship's anchor showed 6 times normal radiation levels. And modern sub-bottom profiling suggests the object is not part of the seabed, but sits on top of it, as if it were placed or deposited there from somewhere else. Ocean X Team founder and CEO Dennis Asberg is quoted as saying, "I am 100% convinced and confident that we have found something that is very, very, very unique." 8. And yet, to this day, no major government or international scientific body has funded a full-scale investigation. No one has drilled into the object to take a core sample. No one has sent down a modern high-definition remotely operated vehicle for an extended mapping mission. The deepest parts of our oceans remain less explored than the surface of the Moon. Exploring the Baltic Sea Anomaly is difficult due to its depth, murky waters, and environmental conditions which present significant challenges. 2. The limited visibility and the need for specialized equipment make thorough exploration and study a daunting task. This has hindered comprehensive scientific research, leaving room for speculation and mystery. 2. And that is perhaps the most frustrating part of this entire story. We have the technology to get answers. We have submarines that can reach these depths easily. We have sonar systems that can map the ocean floor down to the centimeter. We have drilling equipment that can extract core samples from the deepest underwater formations. We have everything we need, and yet nobody is going down there to settle this once and for all. Why? Is it because the scientific community genuinely believes this is just a boring pile of glacial rubble and does not want to waste resources? That is the most charitable explanation. Is it because the cost of a full investigation is too high for a private team to bear? That is possible. Unless Lindbergh and Asberg find a sponsor to fund their exploration, we may never know. 3. Or is there another reason? A reason that involves silent military ships appearing in international waters and governments that seem remarkably uninterested in one of the most talked about underwater mysteries in the world? I am not going to tell you what to believe. I am going to tell you what to believe. I am going to tell you what the facts are. There is something at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. It is massive. It has features that multiple divers, scientists, and researchers have described as unusual, anomalous, and potentially artificial. It generates electromagnetic effects that no one can explain. It contains materials that some scientists say should not be there. It sits separated from the seabed as if it were placed there from somewhere else. And despite all of this, it remains largely unexplored. The Baltic Sea Anomaly remains an unsolved mystery. Its unique geometric features, combined with the observed electromagnetic and thermal disturbances, make it an unusual object on a global scale. 10. The Baltic Sea Anomaly has sparked interest in marine exploration, geological history, and even extraterrestrial life, capturing the public's imagination. It serves as a reminder of how much remains undiscovered in our oceans, and how these mysteries can bring people together in pursuit of knowledge and understanding. 2. 300 feet below the surface, in the freezing darkness of the Baltic Sea, between Sweden and Finland, something is sitting on the ocean floor. It has been there for thousands of years, maybe tens of thousands, maybe longer. It has corridors, it has right angles, it has holes that appear to breathe. It kills electronics, it radiates energy, and we still do not know what it is. Maybe one day someone with enough money, enough courage, and enough curiosity will go down there with the right equipment and finally get us the answers. Or maybe this is one of those mysteries that will stay buried in the deep, just out of reach, forever taunting us with the possibility that something extraordinary has been hiding beneath the waves this entire time. The Baltic Sea Anomaly. Discovered in 2011. Still unexplained, and still waiting. What do you think it is? Let me know in the comments. And if this story sent a chill down your spine, hit that subscribe button, because there are more mysteries like this one hiding in the darkest corners of our planet. And I am going to find every single one of them.